think of our lives a little bit like nature and that we move in seasons. There are those spring moments when ideas sprout overnight, everything's feeling possible, everything's starting. There are those summer stretches we have when we're, really in full bloom. We have so much energy, we're just buzzing with it. We're producing, we're creating. There are those autumn stretches then where it's time to harvest, sort of reap the benefits of what we've created. And then winter are sort of those time periods when, as entrepreneurs and leaders, we're maybe resting or restoring or trusting, hoping that new growth comes again in the spring. Most of the entrepreneurs I know really kind of live in that eternal summer vibe, always producing, always pushing, we're always sort of on. And I know that's something that's been really hard for me. I notice if I'm not careful, I can find myself pushing, through lunch or working late into the evenings or pretty much thinking about my business 24/7 and not kind of really being present in those moments. I noticed that last weekend when I was out with friends and we were, at a farm and we were picking pumpkins and the kids were playing, and it was one of those things where it was just such a wonderful fall time. And I still always found my mind slipping to kind of that, oh, what do I need to do next for my business? That sort of thing. So it's no wonder we're often feeling exhausted or overwhelmed, or there's just so much going on. And in truth, especially from the research I've done, no one really thrives in that kind of endless summer, endless building, endless creating, without taking a rest or sort of finding our rhythm. And that's what I wanted to chat about today. Even nature really knows that rest is a part of rhythm, a part of our growth. We know from science that our energy moves in these cycles. And I've been reading a little bit about this area of chronobiology research, sort of looking at circadian rhythms. And what it's showing is that we really do have different, unique sort of biological clocks. And that means that some of us are not morning people, right? Some people are, which is cool, like more power to you. I wish I was that way sometimes, but some people are more naturally focused and alert in the morning. Others might do their best, most creative kind of analytical work later in the day or in the early mornings, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., which sometimes is me. And the idea here is that when you work in sync with those rhythms, you're more productive, you're less stressed. And what I've certainly experienced and what I've heard from others is that when you try to fight those natural rhythms, that kind of sets you up or burns you out faster. And since we're, when I think about being an entrepreneur or someone that is exploring these other areas, one of the gifts that we have is autonomy over our schedule and our rhythms and sort of how we want to operate and be. Thankfully for me, I get reminded of these sort of natural rhythms every single day. It is not by a mindfulness app or some sort of magical productivity tool. It's my two dogs, my two puppers, Finnick and Hawk. And they wake me up, much to my chagrin usually, I get it, but they wake me up every morning at 6 a.m. for breakfast. Don't need any snooze buttons, no excuses, they're ready to go. And then again at 2 p.m., they want their dental treat, they want their walk, they want to go out and go on their safari's and get their, smell mail and all of that stuff. So it doesn't matter at that time. If I'm on a Zoom call with the CEO of the universe, they will scratch my arm, they'll howl, they'll make it known. Same thing with dinner at 5 o'clock sharp. They're really relentless. I really do love them for that because it means that I get these built-in breaks, and whether I want them or not, but no, generally they're good. I get these built-in breaks that I'd probably usually forget to take on my own. The other natural group I think of are the crows outside. So there's 2 of them. I've decided to name them Onyx and Opal, and they visit my backyard fountain every afternoon around 3 o'clock. And if I don't turn on the water to that fountain, they'll start squawking out there, like going crazy. And they're sort of expecting that, right? That's on their rhythm, on their time. And there even used to be a squirrel that visited. I called him Chestnut. He had his own rhythm, and animals just know and they honor it. And they kind of demand that we do too if we're in their universe. I guess the question is, why do we think it's different for us as humans? Why do we act like we can push through nonstop without honoring our own rhythms, our own patterns, our own sort of natural way of being? One of the things I wanted to chat about today is this idea of doing a little bit of an energy audit. And this is something I've done with my coaching clients. I've done it with teams. I've done it with friends. I've done it with family members. And it's all about noticing what sort of energy flow you get at different times of the day, as well as what you might notice in terms of energy or when you're doing certain activities, things that bring you a lot of energy and joy and rigor. And then there are those things that just take a little bit more energy. Those may even be things you enjoy, right? It might be, for me, going on a walk with the dogs or playing with them or spending time, with my husband. Those might take effort and energy to do, but they also bring me energy as well. So just sort of doing a little bit of an audit. And what, again, science geek, what I love about this is the research backs up this sort of exercise in terms of, showing that when people can align with their internal rhythms, they actually perform better. So there's fewer errors, they report greater well-being, and this really supports that idea of it's not about working harder, it's about working with yourself and those natural rhythms that you have. So there are 3 kind of systems that I've been using and exploring as an entrepreneur that have been helping me to sort of tap into my natural rhythms and the way I'm doing things. And those are the Kanban method, the time blocking and daily themes, and then a minimum viable day. So I just thought I'd dive a little bit into each of these, and they might be something that you could explore. Some of these you might already be using or have even heard of and are something you've been trained on. But yeah, the first is Kanban. That is the Japanese word for signboard or a visual signal, developed by industrial engineers at Toyota. And that was part of their lean production, really trying to be, efficient. And it's something that has been helpful, I know, for a lot of entrepreneurs and creatives. And so here's the idea. Instead of juggling a bunch of things in your head or having sort of endless checklists, the idea is to make your work visible. So essentially you set up a simple board. I do it with physical Post-it notes. I've got a bunch of them around here that I grab. And essentially you set up a column, one that says to do, one that is in progress, and then a third one that says done, which is my favorite column for sure. So essentially what you're doing is you can use sticky notes or wall or even digital tools like Notion or Trello or Miro. There's sort of other ones out there that you can do this digitally. And the idea is that you move tasks along the board and you can literally see your progress. And that visual momentum is something that can be really motivating and something that can be really helpful. I also color code by different categories. I've got, sort of a different method. I will say there's some tasks that I know I need to do, but might not be as enjoyable as others. So the way that I try to spark a little enthusiasm is I put them on this bright blue Post-it note that is my favorite color. And so then I at least get to be looking at my favorite Post-it note as I'm looking. But what I'll do each day is just grab a couple from the Kanban board, and then I'll put them up on my monitor here, and then I'll have those visual, and then I can move them along on my board as I complete them. As we're turning things that are invisible into that visible progress, it can really help us, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by a lot of tasks, or you're stuck in that, I'm working so hard, but nothing's getting done. For me, it's really rewarding to see, at the end of the week or end of a couple weeks, how many things are collecting in that done column. That, gives us a little hit of serotonin, it's like when you check a box in your checklist, you get a little buzz, a little happy juju. And I think the beauty with Kanban is its simplicity. So because progress is made physical and visual, what it does, at least from a physiological standpoint, is it's reducing that cognitive load, it's reducing decision fatigue, it's sort of giving us those little hits of serotonin as we, physically move things along. So that's definitely one of my faves. Another one that I'm using actually in combination with my Kanban board is all about time blocking and those daily themes, where you're really reclaiming that rhythm. So one way to do this is to, assign each day a focus or a theme. So for me, I found when I did my personal energy audit that Tuesdays and Thursdays, for whatever reason, were like really good task days for me. Those were days when I felt I could focus and get a lot done. So I've called those my Tuesday, Thursday task days. I was also noticing in the middle of the week was when I felt a lot of energy and when I tended to have a lot of workshops I was either running or that I was feeling compelled to design, or maybe there were even some workshops I was attending. And that felt like that hump day, it felt like a good one for me. So I call it Wednesday workshop days. I've got Monday marketing days. Mondays, I feel really energized to write and to reach out and sort of begin the week that way. And then Fridays are my finance and management days. And the reason I put it there is because I found that it was a little bit of an incentive to, if I got done those tasks that, are a little more challenging or sometimes frustrating or are things that aren't as fun as creating a, new program or talking to clients or conducting a workshop. If I got those done early in the day, that would mean that my weekend started a little earlier. So there were some kind of built-in incentives there. And so I have the days of the week going down, and then I have the Kanban along the top, and then I can, sort of move my Post-it notes over time. So that I think was really great for me in building the kind of structure I needed, and having those themed days also reduces some of that constant decision making you need to make. Time blocking and daily themes are especially helpful if you're craving that structure but feeling a little drained by some of the constant decision making. It lowers mental clutter, reduces the anxiety of what should I work on next, and helps you to honor your energy cycles. And the research supports this as well. So we know that when you're doing that frequent context switching, it can cost you up to 20 minutes to focus and refocus sort of every time we're shifting tasks. It's one of the reasons why multitasking is not always as efficient as we think it is. So they found that carving out these sort of blocks of time to hyper focus or to really dig in can actually help us to move the needle and move things forward. So theming your days can protect your attention and create that kind of steady weekly rhythm that we might be going for. So the third system is sort of one I always have in my back pocket. It's something I'm calling the minimum viable day, especially because we have days, I think, when as entrepreneurs, you're spent, or you're having a block, or maybe you're in pain, or there's something else going on and you just need kind of one of those day breaks, but you still have to progress a few things forward. This is, where you're essentially identifying what is that one or two things that I just need to keep the momentum going for today. So this, again, is really powerful. This kind of minimum viable day is great when you're tired or you're overwhelmed, or maybe you've come back from a really big event and you just need, you're feeling a little burned out. So the idea here is create a teeny tiny checklist, just a tiny one. And those are kind of the one or two maybe non-negotiables that have to happen that day. And it could be something like, I'm just gonna go to the gym today, or I'm just gonna cook a healthy meal, or I just wanna, call my friend and chat with them. It could be things like that. It could also be, maybe you just need to email this one person, and that's all that has to be done that day. Or maybe it's one thing you need to finalize or you need to post. So just thinking about how you can give yourself a little bit of that empathy, that self-compassion, not pressure, right? So this is really just that way to break the all or nothing cycle or the always on cycle that we can kind of get into. A little bit of science here. The research actually shows that taking this approach with a minimum viable day, even just focusing on one or two things that progress you toward a milestone, can really trigger sort of focus and well-being and can give you a little hit of dopamine to keep you moving forward. When we think about all these three different systems, one of the important things not to forget is to celebrate our successes. And I know it's sometimes hard, right? We're just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and we don't always take the time to celebrate the progress that we're making. So one of the examples I have is I had told myself as soon as I reached having 50 tasks completed on my Kanban board, sort of 50 Post-it notes, that I was going to gift myself with Geode Lifeworks swag. So when I reached that milestone and placed the order, I was so excited, just waiting for the box to come, and the unboxing where I could look at the hats, and I got a couple of t-shirts and a hoodie with my logo on, just brought me so much joy and reminded me of why I'm doing the work I'm doing and I am making progress. And it was sort of a visual thing again for me to indicate like how I'm moving forward. So again, goal here is when you hit a milestone, celebrate it. So let me ask you, what are the natural rhythms in your life? What things are bringing you energy and what things are pulling energy from you? One of the things I think might be really useful is if you try doing just a mini energy audit. So maybe track just one day and notice what fills you up, what fills your tank and gets you excited, and then what kind of drains things a little bit. And again, might be necessarily so, but what are those things that take a little bit of energy from you? And are there things you notice about how you could maybe balance that out a little better and ways you could think about that? So the idea here is your impact as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as someone out there, trying to impact the world in a positive way, that won't come from just pushing 100% of the time and always being in that summer season. In order to have that full cycle, we do need to explore, like, where are the areas that we can rest and regroup and reset? And what are the things that, maybe bring us back to that spring where we get those new possibilities and those new ideas? And hey, if you have crows starting to show up, I'm telling you, turn on that fountain for them and they're going to become your best buddies and start to bring you little gifts and things. Ours are bringing little gifts for us now. So you never know what following those rhythms, those natural rhythms in your life might bring you. So give yourself permission to take a break and to explore this and explore your energy. See you next time.